The sacrifice the sky above the alien planet turned red as fire streaked across it. A spaceship was falling, spinning, breaking, burning. It hit the jungle ground with a thunderous crash, shaking trees and waking every creature nearby. Smoke rose high. Birds flew away in fear. Somewhere inside the broken ship, someone was still alive. Her name was Lyra. She was not human. She crawled out from the wreckage, weak, scared, and bleeding. Her skin glowed a soft blue in the dark. Strange. Tattoos moved like liquid light across her arms. She was beautiful, but clearly helpless. Before she could run, a group of tall, green-skinned aliens surrounded her. These were the Thorn tribe, known for their cruelty. They wore bones as armor and carried sharp electric spears. They looked at Lyra like she was nothing more than meat. She tried to speak, but they didn't care. One of them hit her in the stomach with a spear. She fell to the ground. The tribe leader pointed to the river nearby. It was not an ordinary river. It was full of Zarn piranhas, deadly alien fish with sharp crystal teeth. Their bodies sparkled. Under the water, waiting for their next meal. The tribe began chanting. They tied Lyra's arms and legs with thick vines and dragged her to a long wooden pole hanging over the river. She screamed, not in words, but in pure fear. They raised her above the water, just a few feet from the snapping piranhas below. She was going to be sacrificed. Not far away, hidden in the tall grass, a man was watching. His name was Jack Carter. A human soldier once known as a hero, now forgotten and left behind by his own kind. He held a sniper rifle and wore broken armor, covered in dust and blood. He had been hiding on this planet for weeks, staying alive while avoiding both enemies and old memories. But what he saw today changed something in him. He looked through his scope. The alien woman was in pain. She was innocent. And nobody was helping her. Jack's fingers tightened around his gun. "Don't do it," he whispered to himself. "Stay out of it." But he couldn't look away. The tribe started lowering Lyra toward the water. The piranhas below began jumping, hungry and wild. She cried out again, her eyes full of fear. Something inside Jack snapped. He moved fast. One shot, clean and loud, blasted through the jungle. The rope holding Lyra was hit and snapped. She dropped onto the wooden platform, not into the water. The tribe panicked. Jack ran from the trees, shooting 2 more spears out of alien hands. He reached the platform, kicked away a warrior, and pulled Lyra up in his arms. "Got you," he sighed. She looked at him with wide eyes. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the look on his face. He wasn't a monster. He was hope. Jack ran with her through the jungle. Arrows flew past him. One cut his arm, but he didn't stop. He ran until the chanting voices faded. They reached a cave hidden behind thick roots. He laid her down gently on the ground and checked her injuries. She was shaking. She looked at him, confused and afraid. "It's okay," Jack said softly. "You're safe now." She didn't speak, but a soft light glowed from her hand. She reached out and touched Jack's arm. Suddenly, the wound on his shoulder started to close. Her power. It was healing him. Jack stared at her in surprise. "Who? What are you?" he whispered. Lyra looked at him with tired eyes and finally spoke one word, the only English he seemed to know. "Danger." Jack's face turned serious. He knew this wasn't over. Outside, the Thorn tribe screamed in anger. Their sacrifice was gone. They beat their drums and swore revenge, but none of them had seen a human before, and none of them knew what Jack Carter was willing to do. For someone who couldn't protect herself, the game had changed, and it had just begun. The jungle was silent. Too silent. Jack Carter knew this kind of silence. It wasn't peace, it was a warning. Something was watching. He kept his steps light as he moved through the thick green vines. Behind him, the alien woman followed slowly, barefoot and weak, her hands still shaking from the ropes that had once held her. Her name, he would soon learn, was Lyra, but for now, she was just a survivor. They reached a quiet clearing with tall, glowing trees. Jack knelt by a fallen log, opened a small ration pack, and handed it to her. She stared at, unsure what to do. "It's food," he said gently. She looked up at him, her glowing blue eyes full of questions. No answer. Just silence. She took the food, sniffed it, and took a small bite. Her hands were trembling. Jack sat across from her and cleaned his wound. The spot where she touched him before had already healed. He didn't understand how, but he was starting to realize she wasn't just a helpless alien. There was something inside her. Something powerful. For hours they said nothing. Jack watched her. She moved carefully, almost like a scared animal. But her eyes were sharp, always studying, always alert. He remembered the way she lit up when she touched him. The way her markings had moved under her skin. That wasn't normal. Who was she? What was she? As night fell, Lyra stood up suddenly. Her head turned sharply toward the trees. Jack raised his rifle. "What is it?" She didn't answer. Her markings began to glow again, soft and white. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the bark of a tree, and closed her eyes. The tree responded. Its surface rippled like water. A doorway opened. Jack's mouth fell open. "Okay, that's new." Lyra turned to him. Still silent. Still glowing, she motioned him to follow. He didn't ask questions. He just followed her into the unknown. Inside was dark, but not dead. They stepped into an old, hidden tunnel made of alien metal and roots. The walls pulsed with strange energy. Old machines lined the sides, blinking faintly, like they had been asleep for centuries. "Where the hell are we?" Jack muttered. Lyra walked slowly to a control panel. She placed her hand on it. The room lit up. On the far wall, images flickered to life, strange symbols, old battle maps, and finally, her face. Jack stared. "Wait, this is you?" She nodded. Then she looked away, ashamed. The hologram spoke in an alien language. Jack couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Commands, warnings, maybe even war. He turned to Lyra. "What is this place?" She looked at him, her voice shaking as she spoke just two words. "Made me." Jack's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a hidden lab. It was a creation chamber. And Lyra was the result. Alarms suddenly echoed through the tunnels. A red light blinked in the corner. "Damn it," Jack whispered. "Something found us." Outside, a small flying drone zipped above the trees, its red eye scanning the jungle. It had seen the light. It had seen them. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. "We have to move now." But Lyra didn't move. She was frozen, staring at one of the walls. It showed an image of a fleet of ships, a planet burning, a shadow falling from the sky. Lyra touched her chest. Her eyes filled with tears. She finally whispered something. "They used me to destroy." Jack felt something twist in his chest. "No," he said. "You're not a weapon." She looked at him. "No," he repeated. "Not anymore." They ran out of the lab as the drone's red beam followed them through the trees. But Lyra was no longer just scared. She was remembering who she was. And Jack. He was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't sent to destroy this world. She was sent to save it. The forest had changed. It was no longer just trees and shadows. It was watching them. Jack Carter could feel it in his bones. Every step felt heavier, every breath tighter. Beside him, Lyra walked quietly. Her glow was dim now, like a fading light. In a dying storm, she hadn't spoken much since the lab. Just silence. And pain behind her eyes. Jack didn't press her. Some wounds needed space. After 2 hours of walking, they reached a rocky hill covered in vines. Jack scanned it with tired eyes. Great, another dead end. But Lyra walked forward and raised her hand. The rocks responded. The vines pulled back. Stone slid aside, revealing a door. Circular, metallic, ancient. Jack blinked. You do that a lot. She looked at him and gave the tiniest smile. The door hissed open. They stepped inside. The air inside was cold, but not dead. Lights flickered as they entered. Machines hummed slowly, like something asleep had started to wake up. The lab was massive. A hidden underground base built by someone. Or something. With both human and alien design. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt like it had been waiting. Jack walked past a large tank filled with green liquid. Inside floated something that looked almost human, but not quite. Thin limbs. Glowing veins. Closed eyes. A nameplate under the tank read, Subject 07 Lyra type. He turned to her. There's more of you? Lyra's face was pale. She touched the tank slowly. They made many. Only I survived. Her voice was soft, broken. Jack looked around. Desks were covered with old notes in multiple languages. Screens showed data logs, some in English. Project UNITY-9 Purpose. Hybrid weapon for planetary control. Result. One subject developed free thought. Terminated project. Base sealed. Jack stared at the words. So you weren't just a weapon, he said. You were the mistake they didn't expect. Lyra looked away. Suddenly, one of the screens turned on by itself. A camera feed appeared. A ship had landed on the planet. It was not a rescue ship. It was a hunter. Sleek black ship with red markings. The kind used by private contractors, the worst kind. Jack leaned closer. A figure stepped out of the ship. Tall. Heavy armor. Glowing red visor. KORR. A bounty hunter known across galaxies. Now, he was here. Lyra backed away from the screen. Jack turned to her. He's after you, isn't he? She nodded slowly. Jack clenched his jaw. Why? She finally said the truth. Carry code. Inside me, it can control machines, cities, armies. Jack blinked. Wait. You can control machines? She nodded again. The ones they built me to destroy. I can now stop. Jack looked at the camera again. Kor was scanning the jungle with his helmet. He was getting closer. We have to go, Jack said. But Lyra stepped toward another console and placed her hand on it. A panel opened. Inside, Jack saw a weapon, but not a gun. It looked like a small wrist device, glowing with the same light as Lyra's markings. She held it out to him. For you. Jack hesitated. What is it? It links to me, she said. You protect me. I protect you. He took it and placed it on his wrist. It latched onto his skin and sensed instantly. He felt a strange warmth like he had just touched lightning, but it didn't hurt. Their connection was no longer just emotional. Now it was biological. Outside, Kor's drone beeped loudly. It had found the hidden entrance. Time was gone. Jack turned to Lyra. Can you fight? She looked at him, no longer afraid. I can now. Night fell like a heavy curtain. Clouds covered the stars. Thunder rolled over the alien jungle. And through the trees, a red glow moved silently. Hunting, scanning, locking in. Kor had arrived. The bounty hunter walked like death itself. Metal boots. Armored shoulders. A helmet shaped like a skull with red lights glowing from within. He carried no weapon in hand. Because he was the weapon. Behind him flew a black drone. Scanning heat signals in the forest. It stopped. Beep. Target found. Inside the hidden lab, Jack Carter checked his rifle and tightened the new wrist device Lyra had given him. It hummed softly on his skin, like it was alive. Lyra stood nearby, her skin glowing gently. Not from fear, from power. She's changing, Jack thought. Not just in strength, in will. She no longer looked like a prisoner. She looked like someone preparing for war. Suddenly, the lights in the lab flickered. He's close, Lyra whispered. The wall exploded inward. Smoke filled the room. Through the dust walked Kor, slow, calm, unstoppable. He didn't speak at first, just looked at Jack. Then at Lyra. He raised a small scanner. It beeped wildly. Confirmed, he said. His voice was deep cold. Target, typo hybrid. Level to 9 priority. Jack stepped forward. She's not going anywhere with you. Kor tilted his head. You're human. You should know better. This thing is dangerous. She saved my life. She will end millions. Lyra didn't speak. Her hands glowed slightly, not attacking, not retreating. Waiting. Kor looked directly at her. You hear me, don't you? You know what you are. You've seen what you can do. I've cleaned up your kind before. You don't get to change your purpose. Jack raised his rifle. Then I guess you're the one who's not walking out of here. Kor moved so fast, Jack barely saw a dot in 1 second. The bounty hunter was in front of him, grabbing the rifle and tossing it across the room. Jack hit the floor hard. Lyra stepped between them. Her voice was calm, strong. I'm not your weapon, Kor laughed behind his helmet. You think choice makes you innocent? Your blood is coded for war. Your mind was built in a lab. I made a new choice, she said. You think this human can protect you? He's flesh, weak, forgotten by his own people. Lyra's markings began to glow brighter, and Jack stood up again. Maybe I am forgotten, Jack said, wiping blood from his lip, but I remember who I am, and I don't leave the innocent behind. Suddenly, the wrist device on Jack's arm lit up. It connected to Lyra's glow. Their bond activated. Kor stepped back, scanning. What did you do? Jack smiled. Made a mistake. Yours. The ground beneath them cracked. Energy pulsed through the lab. Old machines came alive, not to fight, but to protect. They were answering her. Kor fired a stun blast. Lyra raised her hand and caught it in midair, turning the energy into light. Then, for the first time, she attacked. A wave of force knocked Kor across the room. His armor sparked, but he stood quickly, growling. This isn't over, he said. He threw a smoke bomb and vanished into the shadows. Silence returned. Jack breathed hard, his heart racing. Lyra collapsed to her knees. He ran to her. You okay? She nodded weakly. It takes too much energy, but I'm learning. Jack helped her up. You saved me again. You believed first, she whispered. Far above in the night sky. Kor's drone sent a signal off-world. Others would come. Dangerous than him. Jack and Lyra had won this round. But the real war was only beginning. The forest was quiet again, not safe. Just quiet. Jack and Lyra walked slowly through the night. Their bodies were tired, but their minds were racing. They had escaped the bounty hunter. But not the truth. Jack stopped by a tree that glowed softly in the moonlight. He sat down and pulled off his cracked armor. His body was bruised, burned, and bleeding. Lyra watched him quietly. She still hadn't said much since the fight. Why didn't you run? Jack finally asked. Lyra tilted her head. Run where? He looked at her. You could have left me. Saved your energy. Lived? She shook her head. I'm not running anymore. They rested in a small cave near a waterfall, hidden from drones and signals. For a moment, it felt like peace, but peace never stays long. Before sunrise, a signal echoed through the sky. A new ship entered the planet's orbit, but it wasn't. KORR. It was something else. Jack's wrist device lit up. A message appeared in rough English. To any human operative, Subject L is to be detained immediately. Full extraction team arriving. Assistance equals full pardon. Resistance equals termination. Jack stared at the words. The military hadn't forgotten him. They were offering him a way home. If he gave her up. He didn't tell Lyra right away. Instead, he sat with her by the water. Back where I'm from, he said, we always believed in second chances. She looked at him, confused. Even broken people deserve a chance to become better, he explained. She stayed silent for a long time, then finally whispered, then why do I feel like I'm not allowed to change? Jack looked at her. Really? Looked. No one gave you the chance, he said, but I will. That night, a team of humans landed in the jungle. Fast, clean, professional. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here for her. Jack saw the landing through his scope. His finger rested on the trigger. He could stop them. But should he? He could walk away from this nightmare. Go home. Be forgiven. All he had to do was give her up. But then Lyra did something he didn't expect. She walked to him. No fear in her eyes. I know they're here, she said. I felt the sky shift. You don't have to face them, Jack said. We can run. She shook her head. If I keep hiding, I become what they say I am, a threat. A mistake. He looked at her, torn. What if they take you? What if I lose you? Lyra reached out, touching the side of his face. You gave me my first choice, she said softly. Now I give you yours. Jack stood there, heart pounding. He looked at the soldiers moving through the jungle. He looked at the woman who had once been called a weapon. Then, without another word, he lifted his gun and pointed it away from her. He fired into the trees, warning shots. We're not surrendering, he said into his old military radio. And if you come for her, you come through me. Back in orbit, the message changed. Target marked as hostile. Strike force authorized. Jack turned to Lyra. They're bringing an army. She didn't blink. Then we fight. In that moment, she wasn't a lab experiment. She wasn't a weapon. She wasn't a mistake. She was something new. And Jack? He wasn't just a broken soldier. Anymore. He was the shield between her and the world. The sky was no longer blue. It turned dark. Even before the ships arrived, the jungle held its breath. Trees stopped moving. Birds vanished. Even the wind refused to whisper. Something was coming. War. Jack Carter stood at the mouth of the cave, holding a rifle he hadn't cleaned in days. His eyes watched the sky. 1, 2, 5 ships pierced through the clouds like knives. Human ships. Military. And they weren't here for rescue. Inside the cave, Lyra sat with her eyes closed. Her skin glowed brighter than ever. The lines on her arms moved like rivers of light, but she looked calm, focused, strong. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was preparing. Jack walked back inside. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Lyra nodded. Are you afraid? Jack paused. I used to be. She opened her eyes. And now? He looked at her. Now I'm angry. They weren't alone anymore. Others had joined. Outcasts, survivors, alien rebels who had once feared. Lyra, now willing to fight beside her, not for revenge, but for choice. They set traps in the jungle. They mapped escape routes. They armed themselves. With scraps and courage, they were not an army. They were something stronger. They were people with nothing left to lose. The first drop pods landed. Explosions shook the ground. From the metal capsules came soldiers, armored, faceless, silent. They moved like machines. They didn't speak. They didn't ask questions. They were here for Subject L. Jack led the first wave. Gunfire filled the jungle. He ducked behind a rock and shouted into his comm. Left flank. Watch the trees. Lyra was behind him, hands glowing, eyes wide open. She wasn't using her power yet. Not yet. She was waiting. One soldier charged. Too fast. He aimed at Lyra. Jack fired, but missed. The soldier pulled the trigger. Lyra raised her hand, and everything stopped. The bullet froze. Mid-air. Even the wind paused. She stepped forward, glowing brighter than the sun. Her voice echoed, layered with something ancient. I said, "No more." She released the energy. The soldier was thrown across the trees, unconscious. The jungle came alive. Machines hidden under the ground rose up, responding to Lyra's presence. Old tech built to kill, now changed to protect. Jack watched in. "Ah, you're controlling them." Lyra shook her head. "No, they remember me. I'm not forcing them. I'm leading." But the military wasn't done. A second wave landed, heavier, stronger. And this time, they brought a new weapon. KORR. He wasn't alone now. His armor had been upgraded. His mind linked to the same machines as Lyra, but twisted, controlled. Smiled behind the helmet. Ready for round two? The battle raged. Trees fell. Fires rose. Rebels fought with fire and blades. Jack moved through the smoke like a ghost, covering fighters, dragging the wounded to safety. Lyra hovered above the battlefield, light pouring from her like a storm. She wasn't fighting with anger. She was freeing machines from control. One by one, they turned against the army. They stopped obeying. Kor reached her at last. He raised a blade of black metal, made from the same lab that made her. He struck. She blocked with a wall of light. Still trying to change the ending? Kor growled. Lyra stared at him. Yes, and then she broke his blade, with nothing but light, but it cost her. She fell from the air. Drained. Jack caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was shaking. Her glow flickering. She had saved them, but she was breaking. Stay with me, Jack whispered. I'm here, she said. Barely. The battlefield went quiet. Soldiers dropped their weapons. The machines stopped moving. Even Kor was gone. The war was over, but Lyra's light was fading. The battlefield was quiet now. Fires still burned in the trees. Smoke floated through the jungle like lost spirits. Broken machines lay still, and shattered armor covered the ground like fallen shells. But the war was over, and in Jack Carter's arms, Lyra was dying. Her light had dimmed. The glowing lines on her skin, once bright and alive, now flickered like a candle in the wind. She was cold. Breathing, but barely. Jack knelt in the ash, holding her close. Stay awake, he whispered. Lips moved, but no sound came. He carried her to the ruins of the lab, the place she was born. The place she was remade. The place that once turned her into a weapon. Now it was her only hope. Inside, the machines had powered down after the battle. But one pod still blinked. Old, damaged, marked with warning signs. A healing chamber, but built for her kind. Not for humans. Jack placed her inside. The machine scanned her body and lit up. Status: critical restoration, possible energy core. REQUIRED. Jack checked the core. Dead. Whatever power it needed was gone. He looked at his wrist. The device Lyra had given him, her gift, was still glowing. He understood then. It was part of her, but now it was part of him too. He could give it back, but he might not survive it. He sat beside the pod and looked at her one last time. Lyra, you're not a weapon. You're the reason I remembered who I was. He took off the device. Pain shot through his body, bright and sharp, like fire inside his blood. He connected it to the chamber. The machine roared to life. Light flooded the room. Jack collapsed. His heartbeat slowed. His eyes closed. Inside the pod, Lyra's glow returned. Slow at first. Then stronger. She opened her eyes. She sat up, gasping. Alive. Her first thought was him. She ran to Jack's side. His body was still. No. Movement. No sound. She placed her hand on his chest. Tears streamed down her face. Please, she whispered. Don't go. Her fingers glowed. She reached inside her power, deeper than before. Not to attack, not to defend, but to give back, a spark, a breath. Jack's eyes opened. Damn, he coughed. That hurt. She laughed through tears. You came back, she whispered. He smiled. So did you. The sky cleared. For the first time in years, it was blue again. In the days that followed, the jungle healed. The machines chose to sleep. The soldiers returned home, not as heroes, but as witnesses. Word spread across systems. The weapon lived, but did not destroy. The soldier returned, but chose peace. And in the center of it all stood two beings, one made in a lab, one broken by war, both more than what they were. Together. Lyra stood beside Jack, looking at the stars. You were never meant to save me, she said. Jack looked at her. Maybe, but I chose to. She touched her chest. Then I choose to live. And so the universe changed, not by fire. Not by fear, but by one impossible truth. Hope is the most human thing there is.